Thank you for listening to Top Shelf Politics Podcast. I'm your co-host, Apollo Pazell, with my co-host,
Kenny Barlow.
And our head of our think tank, Joe Buchman.
Joe Buchman, good to be here.
Thank you, Joe. Today's show, we're talking about a little bit of government overreach in our local communities.
No. Government overreaching?
So what we have today is focused in Cottonwood Heights. A couple of community members, community business owners in the area have been the butt of some government overreach interfering with their business. Back in 2010, there was a $85,000 grant that was given to the city of Cottonwood Heights for a development plan that included some existing businesses. Today we have the owner of the 7-Eleven in that area, Lonnie Roberts. She'll be speaking with us today about her experience and the experience of her neighbors, the Canyon Inn, which is now closed due to these situations, and her interactions with some of the political leaders in Cottonwood Heights. So welcome, Lonnie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so first of all, Lonnie, I just wanted to let you go with your story. Tell us give us a brief introduction on how it started and some of the things that you experienced, and where you're going now, what's happening now with you. So go ahead.
Okay. Back in 2012, I had the owner of the Canyon Inn approach me, and he was just wondering if I'd noticed all the police all over my property in the evening, which I did not because I'm not there in the evening. So I started looking at my cameras on my property and noticed that they were all over my property and targeting his and pretty much going after any customer of his who was leaving the lot. And so what I started doing was I told my employees I want the officer's plate number recorded and the time and the date, and then I told them to please ask them to leave the property, that I didn't want them using my property basically for a stakeout, And that's when it all began for me. I had the chief of police, Robbie Russo, call me the very next day after the first time my employees asked his officers to leave and wanted to know what was going on. I told him what they were doing from my property, and I didn't want that happening from my property, and he denied it, and he just said that they're just doing paperwork. And I said, well, no, they're not, because I see what they're doing on my cameras, and I don't want that going on from my property. After that, pretty much I was bombarded with officers. They would be all over my property, mostly in the evening, late afternoon to in the evening and stuff. And so every time my employees, they'd record it, they'd let me know. I would make a copy of it so I could keep the copies and stuff. And they were just it was almost like a piranha frenzy thing going on. I mean, it was unbelievable, out of control. And the more I asked them to leave, the more they came. They would sit on my property and they would read articles that maybe I know Utah Stories did tons of stories on this, and they would read it. And when I went out there one time and I asked them to leave, I said, I don't know, what are you doing out here? And he's like, I'm reading your fabricated story. And that was Officer Nick Garcia. And I told him, I don't want you on my property. And he said, because the public has access to my property, that makes it public property, and he has a right to be there, and he can be there as long as he wants.
So you said that you said that you had 200 hours of video footage of activity on.
Jim Stojak does.
Okay.
And just hundreds of pictures, and I've got. I don't have as much video because my cameras are stable, but he actually had a camera that he would just go all around. I mean, the officers would be on my property and looking over his customers and shining flashlights in their eyes and just basically intimidating people. And it was out of control. I've never seen anything like this in my life, and stuff. So I finally got to the point that also when I talked to Chief Russo, he said he didn't understand why I didn't want to be part of the city's CDA, because then I would be protected from eminent domain, which is not a chief of police place to say that.
For our listeners, what's a CBA?
What is it?
Yeah.
It's the City Development Association, and I'm not sure of all the details, but it has something to do with the taxes we pay. Like the city would get, I guess, a percentage for so many years or something like that to put towards their development.
So
kind of gathering money that way.
They're saying if you join or support the CDA, that you wouldn't be subject to potential eminent domain seizure of
Yeah,
your
that's what he
business.
told me.
And because you didn't go along with that, it seems like they're sending these officers to your property to harass you.
Yeah, because once I stood up for myself, then I became also a target. You know, I wasn't personally attacked until I stood up for myself. So as long as they got to do whatever they wanted from my on my property, that was fine. You know, but I wasn't going to allow that because what they were doing was wrong. You know, I mean, they're just staked out all over the corner there, and just, I mean, people drive by and they just zoom out onto the street, and they've almost hit customers in vehicles in my lot, you know, swerving around them to get out there, and it's just out of control. And they pull you over for suspicion of, which could be anything, okay, anything. So you don't have a chance.
So the Canyon Inn and your 7-Eleven, and I believe also the Porcupine Grill, seem to be in the midst of
and the lift out.
Okay. So
all four of us.
They seem to be in the middle of a development situation in Cottonwood Heights, a plan that Kelvin Culmore has been working on with the Wasatch Regional Council. What are they trying to build there?
They are going to do 2 hotels, a 3-story parking structure, an amphitheater, and in the back there's going to be, I'm thinking maybe like 17 of these little skinny houses, you know, that are more upright with no yard, like one of those, you know, I don't know if they call them condos or just some little things like that. So
something to try to
like townhomes,
right? To draw some attention to the ski resorts, because you guys are at the mouth of the canyon. So we actually should, for our listeners, let them know where you are. You're at the intersection of Wasatch Boulevard, and what's your cross street?
7,000.
7,000. So it's right at the heart of the canyon, to get up to our ski resort, some of our world-renowned ski resorts.
The Big Cottonwood Canyon.
Right. Big Cottonwood Canyon.
Right before you go up Big Cottonwood Canyon. I'm right there.
So what the city sees is an opportunity here to try to create more tourism dollars, and their developments just happens to land right on top of your store. Okay, so
originally those developers went to the owner of the Canyon Inn and offered to buy his property, which he doesn't want to sell. So then he was told, if you're not going to sell, then we'll just let Cottonwood Heights take care of you. Okay. And that's when it all began. So he was threatened by the developers. The 2 that I know own back there right now is Senator Wayne Niederhauser. He is an owner, and there's a Sandy City Councilman, Chris McCandless, and those are the 2 owners back there right now.
This would be the state senator who needs a giant wall in restaurants to be able to tell what the difference between a bar and a restaurant is.
He's their president, I believe.
Yeah, he's the Senate president.
He's the Senate president. Okay, that's very interesting. So now tell us about. So I believe since then 2 police officers that are no longer with the Cottonwood Heights police force have come forward anonymously to media outlets to say that there was a deal, or not necessarily a deal, but an order from Mayor Kelvin Culmore, directed to Chief of Police Robbie Russo, to increase activity and surveillance in that area. And these police officers allege in order to try to drive business down to try to make the sale more enticing. Is that correct?
Well, it was just what he said was they were told to do whatever it takes to get us out of town, to run us out of town.
So I was being a little too delicate.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, it's there in print, and it's finally after all these years, some of the officers are coming forward, but they're I wouldn't dare give out their names. Right. They are actually afraid. Okay. Of what might happen to them. That's how bad it is in this city. When you have officers afraid, that should say something.
They're afraid of other officers.
They're afraid of retaliation, yes. Chief Robbie Russo.
Yeah, they're afraid of the chief of police.
So now tell me now. So since then, unfortunately, the Canyon Inn has closed down. But you are still in business, but still facing some problems. Tell us about your lawsuit and what drove you to try to seek some
Restitution.
Okay.
Restitution.
I want to tell you one thing first. 'Cause
Sure.
This is very important. We had a meeting, the business owners, I can't remember, years ago, whatever, and the mayor, he actually told me that I should tell 7-Eleven to sell the property to the developers, and then they'll build me a brand new 7-Eleven, and I can work in their gift house while it's being built, and then I can pay rent to the developer. So the mayor told me that also.
Very interesting.
So anyways, after all this years of heavy-handed police on my property and stuff, what they did in our 7-Eleven policy and my policy is, when we hire new employees, they go through a training program, come of age, just, teaching them how to sell tobacco and alcohol and stuff and the laws and everything and how important it is. And I have a policy in place, if they ever are to fail a sting, then they are immediately terminated, and normal procedure is that the employee gets a citation at that time. They go to court. They end up paying a fine. It goes on their record. And the cigarettes, I would go and get a fine. Like if I went to a class, it would be a reduced fine. But the alcohol, I don't know why, but nothing has ever happened to, like, say, the owner or the manager. It just happens to the specific person that failed the sting. We did a sting every 3 months, like clockwork. You know you're going to get it. You just pound into your employees' heads, DID. So I keep records of that, and I'm pretty sure I hadn't sold a sting in my store since 2008, which is pretty good, real good.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2013, I had 2 employees fail back to back. Okay, I was devastated. This is a big deal. So I terminated them. They were on their own to go to court, and they got fined and whatever. So that was more kind of the beginning of 2013. So by October of 2013, I started getting letters from attorneys saying how I'd been criminally charged and wanting to take my case. And I didn't know anything about this, and I just thought it was junk mail. But I kept getting them. And then I started getting scared. I thought, God, what is this about, And then all of a sudden I get the subpoena from Cottonwood Heights City. And they pressed 2 charges, criminal, against me, and it was the city doing it against me personally. So I ended up getting an attorney. I went to court for a year, and a lot of times, we were put off by them not bringing the discovery that my attorney requested. They were just acting like, oh, what was I supposed to bring, and acting, and so this is just costing me more money. Finally, at the end, they wanted to cut me a deal, and they wanted me to be on probation for 6 months and pay $650 fine. Well, I wasn't even present. And you do all you can to make your employees, follow the laws and everything, but you can't be there 24/7. This is unheard of, what they did to me. So I refused the deal. I said, no, this is not right, what they're doing to me, and I don't care how high a court we need to go to. I'm not going to, I'm just not going to agree to this. It's not right what they're doing to me. So we go into court. It's the last day. I had requested a jury trial. The city attorneys the judge said that I had a right to present my case. They didn't want me to present my case. They didn't want me to show my training materials or anything that I go through to try to prevent the selling of alcohol to minors, And the judge said, no, I have a right to present my case. So then they started arguing with the judge, and they were comparing me to statutory rape. And I didn't even understand that. And to this day, I don't understand it. But the judge said, I don't think you can compare selling alcohol to a minor to statutory rape. Then they brought up some kind of driving violation. I think it was like if, like, the owner of the car, somebody takes your car and does something bad, like the owner of the car is responsible. Mm-hmm. And the judge is like, so if I own a trucking company and I tell my employees to follow the law, be courteous, and everything, and they don't, then the trucking company's responsible. And the judge said no. So then the city wanted the jury instruction basically to be, if my employees did it, I'm liable. And the judge disagreed with that. He said he was going to rewrite the jury instruction. And I'm in another state right now, so I don't have my notes. But it had
No problem.
something to do with like, I knowingly did it. And there was like 3 things that they had to prove, which they could not.
Lonnie,
So then...
real quick, I have a question
yeah.
for you. What court, where was this? Do you happen to remember the name of the judge?
It was Judge Chin, and it's the Holiday Courthouse.
Okay.
Well, thank God for Judge Chen, because if you'd had somebody who was complicit with the mayor and his gang that is trying to drive your revenues down to get a better deal for their development, you would have lost. So this is a judge who ought to be
I've had
praised by those of us.
multiple positive run-ins with Judge Chen.
Excellent.
He seems to be a good fair.
When was this? Again, I'm sorry. What year was this?
This was 2013.
Okay.
Hey, Lonnie, I had a question. I was a tenured professor of marketing. I taught business, still do online MBA programs and the like. If I owned your 7-Eleven and I was hiring teenagers to work there and training them regarding the consequences of violating laws around ID for tobacco and alcohol, if I were you, I would be concerned that someone loyal to the mayor and this gang that runs the government there would have a teenager that they would pay to go be hired by you to intentionally be caught in a sting. Did you worry about that, or do you think there's a possibility of that?
Oh, yes, totally, yeah, because they are capable of anything.
So,
I would not put anything past them.
Is there any evidence that these teenagers who were cited have received favorable treatment after the fact?
No. They've been with me for a pretty good while,
Okay.
and they were older people, probably like in their 40s and stuff,
Okay.
No, I didn't suspect anything like that.
I would caution you that could be coming next.
Well,
Well, the weird thing is they have not done a beer sting on my store since November of 2013.
Interesting.
after the
They
case.
have stayed away from me.
Okay.
And when I went to talk to the city manager, because after everything ended up being dismissed, I thought they should give me my money back. It was like over $12,000. And he said that I get special treatment as it is. He said our officers are told to stay off your property and they are not welcome.
Wouldn't it?
And I thought, well, that ought to go good. That makes me look good, to all these new officers coming on,
Let me ask you this: to people who think that people who hear this as a he said, she said situation, and kind of roll their eyes at the idea that the mayor could possibly instruct his police chief to make it tough on you. If the city manager is willing to grant you special privilege, doesn't it stand to reason that the mayor is willing to remove that special privilege from others, say like the Canyon Inn, and make it very difficult for them?
Oh, yeah. And I mean, the only reason that they're off my property now is because we've raised such a big stink. I mean, we have not backed down. We continue to fight. We continue to try to find somebody to help us. And the people that ignore this situation, I mean, it actually disgusts me, because come look at the videos. When you have 200 to 300 hours of videos of cops swarming your property and, pulling people over, and I mean, you're just in pictures, hundreds of pictures that nobody will even look at.
Yeah, so the presence of several police cars on your property would scare away your average patron who doesn't want to be, caught up in some situation that's occurring. And that's exactly, if I understand you correctly, what drove the Canyon Inn out of business.
It did. You could not, there was a period that you could not even drive down 3,000. It was, not 3,000, the 7,000. It was from 3,000 to Wasatch, that little strip of road. It was known as Golden Mile. You could not, I mean, you didn't even drink. You don't even drink ever in your life. You will get pulled over, guaranteed. And you will get harassed and let go. But I mean, would you come back?
Right.
And it's like a lot of they act like they're saving the whole city from drunk drivers. Well, they're issuing tickets that are under the .08. It might be a .02 or, I mean, I even started a petition online to try to get people to be brave and tell their stories. And I did get quite a few stories, and some of them, which we knew was happening, an officer would like tailgate you, shine your brights on you, speed up and pull in front of you and hit their brakes. I mean, that has happened a lot. It's just people being harassed to stay away from our area. And now it has gone on for so many years, that the Canyon Inn has closed. I mean, you can only...
What's the status of the other two businesses that are there?
They're like, I'm not positive, but I did hear that Porcupine has, lessened their hours of business because in the evening they're not having the business like they did.
That's tragic too, because that's an institution.
Huh?
I said that's tragic as well because that's an institution that's been there forever.
Yeah. The Lift House actually purchased the Canyon Inn. And they're going to move over there, and they're going to stay open year-round is what their plan is. They're going to try that and everything. And so Jim, the owner of the Canyon Inn, at least he felt good because we're all like family, and at least if he had to lose his business, at least he gave it to somebody that he, cared about and respected and like family and stuff. So that's what's happening now. As far as I know, nothing has really been happening on the development behind us for quite some time. I know the city residents, Cottonwood Heights residents, have sued the city several times because they keep wanting to do buildings higher than they're supposed to, and like they keep trying to change the rules, and stuff. So then it kind of just sits there. Right. And of course, we're all in the way. So, I mean, my business is booming now. I haven't had the officers on my lot for over a year, okay?
Ever since this got into the news.
Ever since Judge Chin slapped them down.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so
I went to the manager, but at night I don't have my business back. It still has not come back at night,
Okay. Well, for our listeners, take the time to stop in the evenings and pick up an apple fritter. And
they're a little old by the evening time, but there's a lot of good things to be had in your 7-Eleven.
So,
what can we do to support the other businesses there? What could the average listener tuning into us do to help you all out?
I mean, just support us, and not as much even financially, I mean, it's nice, but like, if you have a story to tell, get out there and tell it, because they're making us look like we're just a few troublemakers out there on the corner, and this is a big deal. It has been going on for years. Everybody knows about it. All the different police departments know all about Cottonwood Heights, but people aren't willing to speak. They are afraid. And, that would probably be the biggest help to us. Tell your story. Let them know it's not just us,
Be brave and stand up and tell the truth is really all you're asking.
Yeah.
So what it's now resulted in is Lonnie is suing the city of Cottonwood Heights for court costs to try to get back some of the damages that she had incurred from all of this. So if we'll keep in touch with you, and you can update us on the situation as it goes. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for asking me.
Absolutely.
Well, and thank you for being a principled American who is willing to stand up for your rights and not just be kowtowed by a threatening overreach of government power. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Lonnie, we'll talk to you soon.
All righty.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So as we were just discussing with Lonnie, the situation of government overreach in Cottonwood Heights, we will reach out to Mayor Collmore. I do know that the police department of Cottonwood Heights does not respond to ongoing litigation. But we will reach out to Rob Russo as well. There were also some allegations made against Senator Niederhauser, so we will take the time to go ahead and reach out to them. We'll invite them onto our program to discuss their side of this situation.
Yeah. So if I understood her correctly, that senator was in a position to profit from this development.
That's what was said.
And
that
the
he
profits
was an owner.
Increased by driving down the value of the businesses that were there. And one way you drive down the value of a business is park a bunch of police cars out in front of it with their lights spinning.
Right. So we will reach out to Senator Niederhauser, and we will offer him the opportunity to come on and discuss this point with us, as well as Mayor Cullimore. So what is from the side that we've received now, what are your guys' takes on the situation?
Well, my primary concern here is the broader one of a culture in America of the intimidation and persecution of whistleblowers. And, we see this at a national level where people inside our federal government who are firsthand witnesses to waste and fraud and criminal activity inside our government, rather than being honored and rewarded for whistleblowing on those issues, are threatened. And the waste and the fraud and the criminal activity continues at the highest levels. And, so when I ran for Congress in 2008, I called for national legislation that would protect whistleblowers and then open hearings on waste, fraud, and criminal activity. I think this would get great TV ratings. I think it would be of benefit to all of us. But I admire this woman, Lonnie, for standing up to incredible political power and saying, no, here I am, I own this little 7-Eleven, and no, I will not go along with your plan, even if it profits me, even if I'm going to get a sweet little 7-Eleven under this new development. I mean, they did both the carrot and the stick, right? Mm-hmm. And she stood up for the principles on which this country was founded. She is, in my view, a hero. And but there's this broader cultural issue of the persecution of whistleblowers that I think we ought to address, not only locally but nationally. Yeah. That's not what America was based on. That's what the worst of the Soviet Union was known for.
It's true. In addition, I think that what's fascinating to me is you have Lonnie, who is living what you could call the American dream. She's an independent property owner. She owns her own business, and she's thriving in an area. And you have the government come in and say, well, listen, your American dream is not as important as these people's American dream. So what we're offering you is a reduced version of that, where you don't own anything anymore, and then you will rent your property from these people who have a greater claim to some kind of dream of property ownership and business ownership and things like that.
There's a distinction there between her, who's a free market entrepreneur owning a small business, and then the version of the American dream of the senator and others, which is using government coercive power to get money.
Right.
That's not the American dream. The American dream is you put out a better product or service and people vote with their feet voluntarily, and it's that awkward moment where both sides of an exchange say thank you. So you give your $2 or whatever a cup of coffee costs at 7-Eleven now over, and you get a great cup of coffee. 7-Eleven's grateful because they got your money. You're grateful because you value the coffee more than the money. The other version of this is not the American dream. It's getting government power, getting elected to office, and then conniving away to profit from that, which is rampant here in Utah. I mean, we got a D in the latest national ethics survey in Utah for corruption in our political system. And there seems to be a blindness to that here because Utah is known for, and rightly so, being a state with a culture that takes morality seriously.
I liked your topic, or your saying, Kenny, of property rights. I think this is a very big property rights issue. I mean, it's something that we in Utah have always had strong value about property rights, and I think that's something that we need to keep an eye out on. Yeah. We do need to be fair, though, and allow the people.
Oh, sure.
Absolutely.
Well, and it's funny. It's like, and this is going to sound weird, and this is going to be roundabout, and we can cut it if we want to. But it's like the movie Rocky. All right. Here's the reason Rocky is a great movie is because Apollo Creed is the villain of the film, but he is not a bad guy. Right? You love Apollo Creed because he is style, he is charisma, he is talent that you don't possess. That you're reaching.
Has the name Apollo.
Exactly. But you're reaching for that. And if you get lucky in life, you may get an opportunity to catch him on his chin. And that's what Lonnie's doing. She is that. The problem is that she's more like fighting the Russian in Rocky IV, where you have this corruption.
Man. You have now exceeded my horizon of Rocky metaphors.
know, right?
I'm struggling.
That came at me from nowhere, but
Rocky's the large man at the end of the Rocky. I mean, Apollo's the large man at the end of the Rocky movie. That's the opponent.
Right.
Really big guy.
Yeah.
Successful boxer.
Yeah.
And you like him. Yeah, because he got there honestly.
He earned it. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And that's what she is. Like that's.
I think it speaks volumes that there's been very little action taken by the city and by the police force ever since the court case, and B, her coming public. I mean, you can look at these articles that I have pulled up, and they begin about a year ago is when these started to show up in the Salt Lake Tribune and the Fox 13. And when these started to show up, the police started to vacate her property. They were no longer there. It's difficult for the police chief Russo to stand up and tell the media that they are not doing this when there's a marked decrease in activity over the course of the year. There haven't been stings. There haven't been parking. I mean, since this has come to the media, since Judge Chen decided to throw out this case, the city has completely taken a different tone. And to me, that speaks volumes. And the only reason that we decided to go with Lonnie first instead of having everybody on at once is because there seems to be evidence. There seems to be some evidence that indicates that there indeed was some interference and some overreach.
We have this call from Lonnie to our listeners who may have personal experiences with this to get in touch with her, get in touch with us, give us your evidence, and we will pursue this. The tragic figure here, of course, is the owner of the Canyon Inn and his patrons. If they were still in business, I would be going there. Right. I would put my risk of being pulled over, on the line for that, because I actually, look for those kind of opportunities to make a difference. And I think people who are listening to this kind of podcast are probably those kind of folks as well. You need to not give in, at least not all of the time, to this kind of inappropriate behavior by government. You need to cast a bright light on it, and then you make a positive difference in the world.
Well, thank you again to Lonnie for being on the show, and we appreciate you for listening to us, and we will be back when we have more stories for you at Top Shelf Politics Podcast. I was your co-host, Apollo Pazell.
I'm Kenny Barlow.
And I'm Joe Buchman. Thanks for listening. Tune in again.